in Limsa right now too. Alright, I guess this is the official welcome to episode 1 of this little show I wanted to try. I was going to do this yesterday, but 4th of July is not the best day to try to ask people to come online and spend their time and effort, so figured I'd bump it back a day, which coincidentally today is my birthday, which it is what it is. I think there seems to be a lot of people's birthdays today, so. Yeah, no, it's been a nice, cool day, thankfully, here in Wisconsin. Can't really complain about the weather. And, yeah, friends and family actually reaching out to me. Because I've had a kind of a rough year, so. But my own griping about my own life aside, right? We're here to talk, I don't know, anything online. I'm sure everyone has their own unique stories, trials, tribulations, things they've gone through, friendships that have, blossomed out of nowhere, and ones that have ended rather abruptly. The main focus of this show is that I do want people to participate. So whether you're in chat, whether you hop into voice, I do have a channel set up, Discord channel as well. Chat will show up on screen. So this VOD will be up on YouTube eventually. So if you're not comfortable talking on a personal note, or you think someone might recognize your name or your voice, I will edit the audio in post, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Discord info is on the Twitch page, Heaven's Gate. If you join in there, you can join in the waiting room channel, and I can drag you into the live channel if you want to talk as well. I originally was planning on having a co-host do this with me, just so we had a good back and forth to start things off, but I couldn't really decide on someone long term. So consider this episode and early episodes kind of like a trial period, and if someone really seems to have a way with words, is good at communicating, I might ask you to come back on a regular basis, or if you want to, of course, right? I'm not forcing it on anyone. Just like to have good conversations, and anyone that can keep the conversation going is a friend in my eyes. Aw. Thanks, Mesmer. Yeah, it seems I didn't want to advertise that it was my birthday today, because it seems to be all chat and party finders full of people advertising their birthdays today. I guess it's kind of common to be born after 4th of July, but summer babies. Also, I don't know why my camera isn't popping up. Let's see. course, the camera's not gonna work now. That's alright though. I think everyone that's listened to me before knows what I look like, so. And to get things started off, there were a couple questions I kind of wanted to open up to chat or anyone that's listening, right? I guess a little introduction would be nice, but it's not really necessary. I've been around the RP scene, Final Fantasy, and been playing MMOs online for at this point since about 2002, 2003. I started playing games when the browser. I started playing a very small game back in the day called Subspace, which was a top-down multiplayer asteroid game that had basically a full version of IRC built into it. It's actually still around. Yeah, it's actually still on Steam today. It's called Subspace Continuum, and I always like bring it up to friends that like there's this game that I'm really good at and I played a long time ago, and it's still around, and it's still got a great chat, and the community's kind of dwindling, which is sad, but it's kind of what happens when a game from 1999 is still trying to compete with other games, even if it is free to play and all the servers are community hosted, right? It's probably actually one of the sad things is that it's gotten warped into a plethora of servers and with different rules and maps and stuff, and it just hasn't really been able to sustain a population. Because the community in that game was great. It was one of the first games as a shoot. I mean, I was 12, 13. I remember getting a laptop and spending all summer in a room with no air conditioning playing this 2D spaceship game. doing squad duels, and man, those are the days, right? Those nostalgic kid days. Let me boot up some easygoing music here to keep playing. Who do we have here? Oh. How you doing, Lily? Starting things off a little easy going here today. So I was super stressed out about how I was gonna start this or who I was gonna invite or whatever, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna say I'm going live, throw up a party finder, which actually good reminder. Make sure to refresh. How are you doing today, Lily? Just put on some digital blonde in the background. I know I won't get DMCA'd for that. Gosh. Well, I I hope this helped you de-stress a little bit. I see you, Amory, as well. How you doing today? Yeah, right. No augmentations here. Chat. I have quite a list of things that I wanted to go through and talk about, but I don't want to make anyone too uncomfortable with the stuff that goes on around the RP scene on here, or I guess on the internet in general nowadays, right? It's a different place in 2023 than it was in 2013 or 2003 by a long shot. And I always, I wouldn't say feel bad, but I'm a little disheartened when you see the new generation of kids coming up, and they're born onto their iPhones and then don't get to, I guess, have that sense of innocence. It's something that most parents and most caretakers, right, will warn their kids about the internet to some extent, right? And if their parents don't, usually it's schools, right? Internet safety, that kind of stuff. To be fair, I'm not entirely sure how much they teach that in schools though nowadays, because it wasn't at the forefront of their priorities back in the day. That's for sure. Like, I remember going to the computer lab and using a proxy to go to any website we wanted to on school computers, and I'm pretty sure they can't really get away with that anymore. Yeah, no, it's something that I think about a lot, right? 'Cause it's cyberbullying. Yeah, okay, that's kind of what I thought. Like, um, back in the day, right? Like, yeah, and when you think about it in that context, Buster, it depends on how internet savvy the parent is, because there's definitely people that grew up in the 90s and 2000s that really just neglected the internet, right? It wasn't what they were prioritized on. It was like a tool to be used for their job or whatever, right? And then as social media popped off, right, and like MySpace and Facebook, all of a sudden everyone was on the internet in like 2010, 2012. So that's kind of how when I think of social communities online, right, I don't think of them really evolving until 2013, 2014, after everyone had kind of been around social media and the internet for a couple years, especially the older generation, right? Because I'm sure everyone remembers, getting on Facebook and then realizing their mother signed up for Facebook, their grandmother signed up for Facebook, all their aunts and uncles were sending them friend requests. So it is. I imagine it's more of a state by state kind of thing. Um, the big issue I think with the internet in modern times, right, is like states and government trying to intervene in what used to be a wild west, right? Now it's very, very segmented, right? Um, Different parts of it. Websites, there's kids versions of websites, right? Like the section of YouTube Kids, like that was never a thing, right? It's definitely a tough world for for kids to grow up in nowadays, especially when, you know, they might get their first taste of the internet getting handed their phone and just clicking on the apps that their parents have on their phone, right? Who knows, they might open up Tinder without even realizing it, like things like that, right? There's even the dedicated spaces for kids nowadays are very, I don't know, like for anyone that's ever looked into Roblox or has played Roblox, like that game terrifies me just because of the socioeconomic factors and like work versus play kind of elements in it. People that create 3D assets to sell in the game, and it's got like a whole virtual economy. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a popular game for a reason, right? It's turned into like this weird pseudo capitalist digital landscape. It's kind of strange. I need to turn off that. Uh, let's pause stream. Yeah, and like Mesmer, like I wish that was how the internet was a lot of the times nowadays, right? Like kids didn't care about social media as much. And to some extent, I think Gen Z and, the younger generation is kind of realizing that it's not beneficial to them in a lot of ways. So they're trying to wean themselves off it because they can see the older generations fumbling and screwing up and making fools of themselves on a daily basis, right? And I think it's something that goes underappreciated a lot of the time nowadays is because kids are on the internet from such a young age, their intelligence and social awareness is higher than it would have been, you know, in the past. A 14-year-old nowadays is much more in tune with world news and, the internet of things, you could say, right? Like what's going on the internet overall than they used to be. So, dude, up. I don't know, we're gonna get some more time on this one. Thank God Digital Blonde makes 15-minute tracks. Yeah, it's my birthday today too, which I I didn't want to like advertise or anything, but I am playing at Valve tonight, and they wanted to throw me a little party, so I was like, sure, whatever. And then I see all the other party finders up for Missing Pieces' birthday and Asteria Nebula's birthday and all these other people, and I'm just like, oh, I guess my birthday's more common than I thought. We have our first contributor. Welcome to the show. "33 is definitely not like a celebratory age. I think as soon as you're over 30, it's all downhill from here, but you know. uh, yeah, no, I mean, week one is the hardest week, right? I've just been delaying this for, at this point, for the better part of a year. So it's, yeah, no, and it's something that um I've kind of wanted to do from the get-go. Like the DJing was something that I love music and I loved listening to people play on here, and I just wanted to fill in like the little gaps where there was no music that I liked being played at 4 in the morning. So I was like, I need to be the person to play that music. And it turned into a little more than that eventually, and then the whole DJ scene picked up as well. So now there's so much competition that it's like, I don't feel like I need to DJ anymore, really, if I don't want to. But I mean, I still will because it's something I enjoy. But yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's definitely been kind of the outlook I've tried to keep in the past month or two. Not really, not really being too aggressive or going after, you know, a manager or a venue owner, right? Who tends to have a certain gap on a certain day, and I offer to play that night, right? I'm the kind of person who will just silently wait for an opportunity, which isn't the best, but when there's this many DJs, I don't want to like step on people's toes or make people feel like they, you know, don't deserve their chance because, I've been DJing for over a year now, right? Like people still deserve their shot, right? Just 1 second, I'm gonna try to troubleshoot this audio issue.
Testing, testing.
Might be working now. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, maybe. Guess we'll find out here in a little bit. Waiting for confirmation. I'm super low, but I am going through.
Yep. Yeah. I just gotta adjust the level.
My mic always has me be super quiet anyway for some reason.
There we go. I think that should be working now.
Okay, cool. Now maybe everyone can actually hear me. So if
Yeah.
contrary to popular belief, I am not actually telepathic. Yeah. No, the social scene, especially in this game, has been an absolute wild ride. Um, and I know that you've been a part of it for quite a bit longer than I have, as well as a part of other more vast internet communities. Most of my stuff personally is just this game. Outside of this, really, I only had like some groups of friends I made online through League, and League in and of itself is just toxic and is like notorious for it. So to
Yeah,
come to a
it's
place that is known to be more accepting um, was really quite a change for me.
yeah, no, and the variety of people within this community as well is probably its
Mm-hmm.
strongest suit. Because the game is not, I wouldn't say it's not as difficult, right? Ultimates still bring out the sweat lords, and
Yeah.
PvP does to some extent as well, but like parse culture even in this game is kind of a joke within itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
people ultimately know that it comes down to like crit RNG and silly stuff like that, So compared to a game like World of Warcraft or something, it's there's just a different level of like lightheartedness around the content and whatever you choose to invest your time in on here.
I think the just the diversity of things that you can invest your time in is also just a huge draw to this. Because even if you don't end up liking necessarily that end game harder content, there's still so many other aspects that can draw you in and keep you here. There are people who just do PvP that I know. There are people who do it specifically for the housing system, or just because they like playing the market board. And so I do think that it really does add to that amount of diversity. Is that it's not just about one core central concept at the end of the day anymore. You have games like WoW, which I think are still very core in this is about the end game content, and either you're doing the end game content or you're not doing anything. Um, and I think part of the huge success about this game in particular is that it branches away from that. There are certain people that I know who play this game specifically because of the social scene and who got into it because of the social scene DJs. And I think that that is incredible at its core. That you can have something that has such a thriving sub community that it becomes the draw for people who have not even interacted with the main core of the game.
Yeah, it does say um, a ton to the people that end up investing their time in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for as much drama as there can be from time to time, the bulk of the community is just here to make friends and
It's true.
relax at the end of the day. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you run into someone at a club or you run into someone at a cafe, you know, you're you're not being judged. They're not like looking up your parses right away. And
I
it's
mean,
it's a breath of fresh air.
you're being judged just not for that reason.
Yeah, other things are.
Let's be honest. They're gonna look at your adventure plate. They're gonna look at your search info. They're gonna still draw conclusions about you based on all of that, like how you present yourself. But at least in this game, you have some level of control of how you present yourself enough that you're being judged based on the aspects that you personally have put out there for people to see. Um, which I think is somewhat healthy, even if it is, I don't know, toxic at its core. That you are going to be judged here. It's definitely more than that, though. You know, um, I think a lot of people find a lot of relief in being able to present themselves how they want to be presented in this space. Um, Nope, our wonderful host actually had to step away for just a minute, so you're stuck with me and my wonderful voice. So I'm sorry you're going to have to deal with me entertaining you, which is um, an absolute terrible turn of fate for all of you. I'm really sorry. Um, so we're going to talk about pizza now because that's what's going on in chat still. Yeah, there's all sorts of different type of pizza. I've made pizza all sorts of pizza for my life, from classic Neapolitan style to hand tossed New York. Pineapple does deserve a place on its pizza, but like most things, it's not everyone's cup of tea. And I think that, you know, getting upset at the people who have different, varied opinions from you is frankly incorrect. I think people are allowed to enjoy what they enjoy. Just don't shove pineapple on other people's pizza, you know? Pizza toppings can lead to cyberbullying. Okay, everything can lead to cyberbullying. I, I, I don't understand how this became like the big divisive topic of the internet. It really depends. Um, Most of the time, I do appreciate a thinner crust. Um, but I think that if you're going to go the thick crust, you need to have the proper toppings in order to go alongside it. Different crusts kind of work better with different ingredients and amount of ingredients. And if you're going to have a thicker crust that can support the weight of heavier amounts of toppings, I think that the actual aim of the pizza should be focused on those toppings and it'd be very like topping forward. I do believe stuffed crust is one of the greatest achievements of humanity. Um, but I also really like cheese, so yeah. Um, I don't know. I feel like I also have not normal pizza opinions at the end of the day. Um, because as much of a love as I have for pizza, I think that calzones are actually a superior form of the same types of base ingredients. Here's my controversial take. Calzones are better. I would apologize about you now having a need for pizza, but I'm not going to because I think we all need a proper amount of pizza in our lives.
All right, apologies for that.
You're okay. We've just been talking about pizza this whole time.
I was gonna say, if anyone else does feel like joining in a voice chat, you're more than welcome to join.
Mm-hmm.
Discord is on the Twitch page. Moving to the waiting room channel, and we'll drag you in.
Absolutely. And then you can
Oh,
kick me
I
out
do see.
if I get
Yeah,
too boring.
no, of course not. Oh no, I see someone in there too. Mesmer.
Oh,
Hello.
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 Hello,
Hello.
hello.
How you
I
doing today?
I'm doing great. I just need to stream because I echo, and I'm just like, wait a minute. There's so many distorted voices. I had to just like, okay, I need to do something about this real quick. So yes, hello. I am Ari. I also go by mesmerizing, which is short for mesmerized by the horizon because I stare at the sky a lot. So I was like, the most original thing I've come up with and smushed them together.
That's unique though. I mean,
Yes.
I think about my own name online, right? Like I came up with Heavenless when I was about 13 and I've been using it ever since. So I've had this name for 20 years now and I kind of have lost a sense of what it meant originally, and every once in a while go look it up and it's Norwegian for someone who acts purely out of vengeance.
Oh,
You know, edgy 13-year-old guy coming up with a edgy name, except it was in
No, that
another
is
language.
that
that
is
makes
so still you though. I mean,
It's kind of ironic that it
it
is,
is a
but
little bit.
yeah. I went by like a couple of names at some point, like Celica Cybers, which I used to go by Celica, and the one thing that I was very proud of, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, so that's what it was one of the newer types of monsters, and one of the decks that I built was a oh god, what was it? I don't exactly remember. I do know that like, it was fire animals, animals associated with
This
fire.
is salmon grates. Yeah.
Salamangreats, yeah. And before it was required for you to make everything Salamangreats, I actually made a Salamangreat engine link deck, and
Oh.
I was very proud of that. And my friend at the time, he said that you can't play that well. That's just because I was new to the whole thing. So I
Mhm.
mean, I knew what he meant, but you have great ingenuity, and that's what we like. And so I'm like, I can do something about this. So if I play card games, I'm more for R&D, not exactly like competitive play.
Right. And that there's a lot of fun in that to be had specifically. Um,
Right.
I also enjoy that. Like there sure is a joy in being able to win a ton if you like build one of the more meta decks. You really focus on that competitive aspect. But I find that the real joy of things like that often comes with just playing with your friends and doing sillier, more interesting things instead. Um, my
Yeah.
name, my name purposefully does not have much meaning. It is from a misheard song lyric, um, and I thought it sounded cool. And so I'm like, yep, this is it. This is my name now. Everyone's gonna have to deal with that, and here I am. I think it's really
nice.
cool hearing why people pick the names that they pick, though.
Right.
Especially in a situation here where, like, for pretty much all the people here, it's not their real name that they're using. They're just
Yeah.
finding something else to represent them.
Yeah. I mean, my name that I go by now, Ari, is actually a shortened form of Aria, which of course is how I go by in Final Fantasy 14.
Mhm.
And if you say Aria, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like in a more casual setting, like Ari is generally more acceptable because if you say like something like Aria, and I'm like, oh no, what did I do? But if it's like
What? Yeah,
Ari, it's like, yeah, what's up? I'll be more than happy to speak with you.
yeah, absolutely. That's fair. It's kind of nicknames and type things that kind of become more associated. It's kind of weird that you can have those they're called what diminutive names um, based off of like the names that you have in game as well. I mean, I give everyone nicknames. It's really a problem, and it's everyone else's problem but my own. Um, and so
Yeah,
everyone gets really confused when I talk about people because I just call them whatever I want, and no one really has a say in the matter, even them. Um,
right.
but it's really weird just having the amount of landscape, and then you have the certain people that you do end up learning like the names that they do go off of like in real life as well. And there's a kind of like more sacred feeling to that versus like if you can meet a stranger in real life and learn their name, but if you learn the name of someone that you met online, it's like, ooh, I hold this like grand, powerful secret now. Um, as
Yeah, it
if like we
almost
need to write it in some book and gain some sort of magical control over them or something.
I feel
Yeah,
like I feel like knowing someone's real name online is like almost like a parental kind of thing where you like when you're scolding them or you're like trying to be taken seriously, you whip out the real name like
I hate how right you are.
Even
it's
I've
my
done that to people.
yeah,
yeah.
even my partner, like, he knows my real name, of course. So it's really weird whenever he uses like my real name in like any sort of context. Like if he's like talking with someone who doesn't know I go by Ari, then it's like fine, but he usually just calls me Ari and I just get like, oh, like the happy little happy chemicals just flying. But if it's like Mara, it's like, oh, interesting. I I'm not used to hearing that. So it's just very unique. It's just that weird, unique feeling you can get from being in the online space versus being out in the real world. It's just a weird disconnect, but it's sort of like your public face versus your private face. So
Yeah.
it just makes a lot of sense that way. And I don't know, I just think it's fascinating. But then again, I used to be into sociology, so it
Oh.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like especially with FanFest coming up, and it's gonna be my first time going to a large scale gaming convention or meetup of any kind, right? Um, so like having meeting people that I met in game before I started streaming, um, who know me by Vanna, and people that know me as Heavenless from streaming, versus people who know my real name, and having all like a group of people and having different people within that group all use a different name is going to be a little strange, but
Right.
because I mean I role played for years prior to playing Bayonetta on Primal. I played characters back on Crystal as well, so I sometimes I'll see someone say a name that I used to go by, and it like tricks like hits like a switch in my brain, and I almost respond to them, and then I was like, okay, I'm not that. That's not my character anymore. And then I'll see people addressing me as Vanna, people addressing me as Heaven, people addressing me as my real name, and it's definitely a weird switch, especially when you meet them all in real life,
That's true.
which
Yeah.
is going to be
Speaking
an
of
interesting
which,
time.
yeah, sorry. Like speaking of which, I know that you mentioned just now, like you were on Crystal, which is actually
Correct.
very interesting because I am also from Crystal. I started out on Mateus in September of 2018, specifically September 19th. And this was, I want to say, late 4.3, early 4.4, somewhere around there. My friends at the time, they got me into it. I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't really think I should. I don't know. I don't have a good laptop." And I got a very bad laptop, very cheap one too. And we, aside from those friends, we expanded our social circle to like people who RP'd, people who did all this. But of course, like it's Mateus, you would find a bunch of role players. And I ran in that crowd for a while. And then I realized that the RP scene wasn't for me. I'm more of a raider. I'm not doing this tier because I'm not interested. I don't care that much. And I've got a bunch of other things going on in my life right now. But it's just one of those things where we just had like a disconnect. And I figured out what I wanted to do, but I actually um went back to the RP scene like late last year, did a small stint of like going to venues and everything. I didn't make any friends. I mean, I made one friend actually during that time, who worked in one of the venues, and I haven't actually seen her in a long time. Wow, I just realized that. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing because I had like a bunch of like RP lore for my character, like because I play a Zayla Aura, had like a long backstory for her, but it just turned out that I just kind of trashed the whole thing, and then I just became a full-time raider whenever I wasn't doing anything specific like crafting for the firmament because I am a hardcore crafter as well, so it's just very interesting. Like I don't talk to people from my Mateus days anymore, but I made like a load of friends on Primal after moving, and that was really really nice. Like the whole sort of like difference in how I felt. I was like, okay, yeah, definitely Leviathan's for me. And I also met my partner before we both moved to Primal.
Yeah, I remember when I first had left Crystal, because I had started RPing late late Heaven's Ward shortly after Housing came out, um, and I had RP'd in World of Warcraft prior. It was something I kind of did on like the down low, because I had a normal group of friends that I had played with since high school. Granted, they were all around the country, but some of them were still friends from my high school. And not that I was embarrassed about role playing, but I just got into some shadier type of content, you could say. Um, and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit, and I made gold doing it. So I kind of had a reputation on an alt. I would like as soon as you could hide your status in BattleNet so that you could be seen offline. I'd log off for raid for the night and I'd go actually make gold. And I kind of did that for probably the better part of 2 years in like Cataclysm. And I kind of got burnt out doing it to some extent. And then I was asked by someone that I role played with if I would join them in Final Fantasy. And this was just before Housing came out. Their goal was that they were looking for people to RP with basically before it came out. Very established like writer that was looking for other talented writers because it's definitely the way the writing community in a lot of these games kind of works, right? It's like I wouldn't say it's elitist, but there's definitely levels. And once you get to like a certain level, you kind of don't want to drop down below. I kind of echo what you were saying, Ari, about like you come up with like your backstory and put in all this effort, and you can't, I don't know, go back down to below that level too comfortably. It kind of feels like an insult almost to your own effort in a way. And not to like disrespect new role players or new writers because everyone needs to start somewhere, but it's like you kind of get to a level and you don't want to coddle people as they go through their growth phase, right? You kind of want to be like, oh yeah, I'll write with you when you are capable of writing it at this level, right? And you set them free, and you hope that they come back in a couple months and they're a little more talented, or you know, uh, have the willpower to write a story with you or come up with something creative, because there's definitely a lack of it in these uh I would say like these past couple months I've been playing. I haven't been actively looking for role play, but trying to scout it out at venues when you like, you see someone drop a big emote chat or something, right? And you ask them if they role play, and it's just like, oh no, a pre-written thing, and you're just like, oh dang.
Uh, it's harder, especially because like things aren't advertised. Like they'll advertise like quote unquote RP, and they don't really mean that type of RP anymore. So it's a
Yeah,
lot harder to find the types of places that are like that. And it kind of comes down to like you have to be in the know for a lot of them. From what I've heard, a lot of
yeah,
those places don't advertise properly on like the
they
app or anything anymore. They just have a set group of people already, and they know each other, and then they bring people in by word of mouth at that
yeah,
point.
they basically personally vet them when they meet people, right? And
Right.
they meet your criteria, right? You might get an invite to the group.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was kind of a group that I role played with early after I came to Primal for quite a few months.
Hmm.
And they were very, very heavy on volume of writing, right? They had a private Discord, and there was different channels for, you know, different different pairings and group conversations, or like we would go to an event and uh, we would create a channel just for like that night's events, and we would continue it beyond that night if it needed to, right? Like if we had stories that we wanted to flesh out, or
Right.
things we wanted elaborate on that we didn't get to finish before. It's funny because if you're at like a venue or something, right? It's not necessarily like the best RP scene, but or the best space for a story, but
Mhm.
just like real life, right? Wild stuff can happen anywhere. It isn't really dependent on location. If you have a group of people that are there, that's all you need. That's the
Mhm.
fuel. So I mean, it was something that lasted for quite a few months and was fun. So I can't
Yeah.
say it was something I disliked, but it became kind of all consuming in terms of my effort and my time, and to the point where like I'm trying to go to sleep and I'm in bed still writing, like because didn't I felt like I didn't contribute enough to the conversation over the course of a day, which is a weird like it's just a very different, it's like an internet influenced social like pressure within a group, right? If everyone writes 4,500 words a day, right, and you skimped out and wrote 2,500, and maybe you had a good excuse for the day, but you still don't feel good about it, right? You like want to help contribute a little more, so maybe you make up more the next day, or whatever it might be. Um, but luckily for me, I decided to take a break,
Mhm.
and I think I probably about a month and a half. I think it was right when Lost Ark came out last year. So like March
Gotcha.
after Endwalker came out, and
Mhm.
take 6 weeks off, burn myself out on another game, grind my ass off, uh, and then there's nothing there's nothing quite like um, playing a different game where there's no social environment, right? It's purely gameplay and like competition driven to
Right.
really make you appreciate what Final Fantasy has to offer. And like it's not something that you can always sense when you're, you know, only playing Final Fantasy, right? You might just see drama or see like, oh, I'm running a venue or I need a DJ. This is like work. Like
Oh God.
really,
Okay. That I have so much to say on that sentence alone. This is like work. Ugh.
yeah, and like playing another game where the content within the game feels like work, even though you're not trying to make it feel like work. Like you need to go out of your way in Final Fantasy to make the game feel like work, in my
Right.
opinion.
Mhm.
So yeah, playing another game is a great way to give yourself that little refresher of like why Final Fantasy is as good as it is.
Right.
Right. Especially since like I've been trying to, because like I said, I'm not gonna raid this tier. So I was like trying to figure out like other games that I could play. I found like a good couple of ones that were very well worth the time. And then whenever I was done with those, I would just like take a break and then just come back, do my dailies, craft a little bit. It's just one of those things where, for me at least, and maybe for a lot of people, it's the fact that it's very homely is very special. That you can just come back, pick up where you left off, see some people. If you want to dance in Limsa, go dance in Limsa. But it's just that type of thing that keeps like keeps coming back to a lot of people. It's just that feeling of, it's the same old, but it could be drastically different.
Yeah, depending on who you decide to, check in with or follow up with. Like, I know I've had friends that come and go from the game, right? And some maybe I'll come back and they're all taking a break, right? And you really want to spend time in the game doing whatever, right? So you go out and you meet new people, whether it's people doing trials in Party Finder or just a new group at an RP venue or something. It's a good way to diversify your social circle. Um, and I mean, it's something that after being around the RP scene on Crystal and Primal and in different games, I've RP'd in Black Desert, Guild Wars. Um, Having that wide range of people that you can hit up and just reconnect with, catch up with, and if you both have the time and energy, right? You could RP with too. Like that's such a blessing that a lot of people take for granted. And because the social scene is so developed in Final Fantasy, the ability to go on here on a random night when you have no friends online and just strike up a conversation with a new group of people and maybe end up in a voice chat with them or in their Discord or whatever, right, for the night is kind of heartwarming and like refreshing, especially for people that you know I myself not in most urban area, right, fairly rural small town. And I've just moved out here 6 months ago, so I don't know a ton of people.
Right.
So like having the ability to go online and connect with people is pretty detrimental to my mental health, I would say, at this point.
Humans are social creatures at our core, and everyone kind of wants that. Even the people who like bars aren't their scene, and out in the world, where do you go to just talk to people besides like going to a bar? And even then,
Yeah.
like you might just sit there by yourself and just not really hear from anyone. And that does happen in this game. There are people who are just too shy to be able to strike up conversations until some introvert walks around and adopts them, um, which will happen to everyone eventually, I'm pretty sure. Um, but it kind of gives that a little bit of outlet, especially because no matter what time of day it is, you can find that social aspect here where you wouldn't be able to in real life. I wouldn't be able to go out at 4 a.m. out into the streets and have a good conversation with someone, but it can be 4 a.m. and I can log in and I can go somewhere and I can meet someone new and it can be a pleasant and good time. So no matter what my own schedule is like, I feel like it allows for the capacity for that type of connection with people. I definitely agree with that. Ari, you had mentioned like that you didn't really have much of that type of community until you came to Primal. Is there anything in particular that you feel was like contributed to it feeling more at home for you? Was there any like thing that sparked that at all?
What I think was that I want to say was the disconnect for me personally. I don't like RPing as much as probably anyone else here, and that's totally cool.
Hmm.
So I would be looking like at Party Finder, trying to find things to do, try to like connect with other people because I would be so consumed with trying to be the best because it's like, the whole joke of Crystal doesn't have is only RP, there's no raiders or anything, and I'm like, I want to change that. So it was the disconnect that I personally felt. And other situations arose where I had to get off of Goblin for my own mental health.
Hmm.
And well, actually, before I left, I joined a social party finder, and telling, I was like telling him what was going on in my life and doing all that. And I just was like, look, I can't be here anymore. And so he validated my decision. We became very close. We became very good friends that night, like very fast friends.
Hmm.
And then uh we both decided that due to situations we would move off of Crystal. I said I was going to Leviathan because that's where the more hardcore raiders are, but they just welcome anybody, so
Yeah.
it's no shame if you don't raid. So it's all good. And he actually couldn't get on Leviathan. He was actually um torn between Hyperion and Leviathan,
Hmm.
but due to the servers, of course, being at capacity, he couldn't get in until 6.35. But the heartwarming part about this whole story is that um, we're partners and we've been with each other since
Hmm.
um like March 3rd is when we like became official and everything, and a couple of days after he got onto Leviathan. Thank God for 6.35. Like you brought Arika Orthos, but the main thing is I wanted my partner to be on Leviathan with me. And March 12th is when we got eternally bonded. So that
Oh,
was pretty nice. But yeah, it's just I'm not that social to begin with. The only reason why I decided to go on to Social Party Finders was because I wanted to be a better person, a better, like completely better than what I was before because I was ultimately consumed by rating, wanting to be the best, like jumping to Aether to do Uwu, and I still haven't cleared the fight, which is terrible. Gosh darn those Titan jails. But it it was just I kind of grew out of it and I wanted to be a lot more independent, but at the same time I became consumed by just bashing my head against like Eden's Promise when that was the current tier. But I'm taking it a lot more easy now on myself, just not bashing my head against like Anabasos for hours on end and prioritizing my mental health. But yeah, I'm a lot more happier on Primal than I was. I should have been on there in the first place, but you know, Aether, Mateus, everybody's there, so you
Mhm.
gotta go.
yeah, I know. For me personally, I rated pretty hardcore in World of Warcraft until about 2018. Um, I played with a guild that always full cleared heroic and would always try to push into mythic every tier, and it was something that I didn't mind because it was an established group of friends that I could do it with, or I had raided with them for a decade at this point. So not having to find a new group of people is definitely one of the benefits of playing a game long term. Granted, not everyone finds that group of people, right? And I definitely kind of miss having that around Final Fantasy, but at the same time, the social side of the scene has kind of made me feel closer to the people I do know on here, which is 100% something that I can say I enjoy much more. You know, when for for my own, example here, the past couple of months have been pretty rough on me. I had a series of medical complications. I had complications from my bowel disease that made me anemic. I was in the hospital. I had 4 blood transfusions, 5 iron transfusions, and then I went home for a couple weeks and had clotting issues and was back in the hospital. And they found a clot in my heart. I had open heart surgery. So it's definitely been nice to have a different group of friends that I can reach out to when my own life is, you know, spiraling in a way. Because to be fair, I messaged one of my friends from World of Warcraft, right? And he was like the guild leader, and he was the only one that I really felt I connected with long term. A lot of people would come and go, but I messaged probably 25 people from around Final Fantasy when this happened, right? And uh, I know Lily is here in the chat too. Like they made like a kudo board and donated a little bit of money, and like everyone wrote their best wishes down and stuff. And that like when you're sitting in a hospital bed by yourself, that is like the best thing to feel, right? Know that there's people that are thinking about you, and you're not entirely alone. Because
Right.
I had I had only been out here for a couple months at that point, right? And granted, I did move out here to move in with a girl that I met on Final Fantasy. Didn't quite work out like I would have hoped, but that's kind of the nature of relationships that you initiate online, right? And try to move on with in the real world, right? Because everyone kind of hides parts of themselves online, you know. Um, Sometimes they don't, right? And that's kind of one of the big struggles I feel for connecting with people online is some people are very honest and transparent about who they are and what they're looking to accomplish, who they're looking to meet, and then there's
Mhm.
others who are fine to treat this purely like a game when they're only here to seek out their own entertainment, right? And their own entertainment might be trolling people in Party Finder, right? Like you never know the type of person you're gonna meet sometimes, right? Um, and you just hope that when it comes down to it and you're talking to the person and not the character, that they can be truthful, at least to the extent that you need that truth, right?
Right.
Because depending on the person, you know it's a game and that people are here to have fun and blow off some steam at the end of the night. But at the same time, you do want to find people that are genuine and aren't here to stab you in the back or be like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. I was catfishing you the whole time." Like that's never fun.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
just outright selfishness too. I
Yeah.
don't remember the exact number, but I saw sometime recently they were talking about the United States divorce rates, and they were looking at the numbers, and they're like there's a lot of people where the reason for divorce listed was cheating on spouse via the internet, right?
Yeah.
And you have a lot of people who are on here for their own ends, and they keep things secret and apart because they are attempting to get something for themselves using the barrier that this provides them. And so it's hard sometimes, and it kind of takes a lot of trust to develop to be able to actually interact with and have those people that you're like, okay, you're not just a terrible person, you know. You're being real, you're being honest. Um, but it's such a gamble when you meet people on here because you don't know. And there are people I've found on here that I absolutely love to death. I've chosen family, you know, people that I love with my entire being on here. And then I've also met people who are on here just as a form to escape their life and therefore will use other people to that end. Um, and so you're right. There's an amount of like how much truth is actually being presented here that
Right.
is terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that you mentioned the reason behind the divorce rates, and ironically enough, not again, not to get into it, but it's like
Hmm.
I've been cheated on, like
Right. Yeah.
recently, and it just makes me sick to my stomach that that is a type of thing that can happen, and that legitimately happened to me, except I was on the other end of it. I wasn't the one who did the cheating, but
Right.
but my ex was was the one who did it and met like some girl, and I just was like trying not to crumble from all the pressure, and it just makes me beyond irritated that people would do that, and that's the whole reason why I believe to be very I want to be very honest. Like if there's something that I completely forget to say, I legitimately forget because
Yeah.
memory issues and whatnot that I have. But I try to be honest and truthful because, you know, it's a scary world out there, even within Final Fantasy. It's one of those things where you have to be very, very careful of. And the thing is that I'm I'm not very socially inept. I prefer to keep to myself most of the time and just like maybe a handful of people I talk to. But like putting myself out there, especially whenever I got back into the venue scene along like November, something like that, like it was scary. It was one of the most terrifying things that I had done because I know how to do E12S. I know how to do like anything in Promise, just as an example, but you don't really anticipate going to a venue, but just putting yourself on AFK, doing bees knees, and then you just show up on a stream. And you, for me, it's like I didn't know how to process that. It was like, whoa. And then actually, like, getting out there and talking to people is just like the weirdest thing to me. And, but if I didn't do that, though, I would not have met my partner. And the thought of that actually does scare me sometimes. It's like I couldn't be here right now if it wasn't for me just, you know, wanting to get out there.
Mhm.
I know within the RP scene, there's a lot of people who really look down on venues, especially more of the, I guess you could call them like mainstream ones, right? The ones that are just Twitch DJ, and
Mhm.
maybe not too much RP, right? Like a bartender and a greeter, right? It's like it's there to create the club experience that everyone kind of wanted to see again. Oh, there we go. I got my camera. My hair's all screwed up though. It's all right though. Um, the thing that really always bothered me personally with the venue scene was just that it it lacked a certain, I don't know, purpose. Like you were after the DJ stuff got really popular and a million of them popped up. It was kind of a slow crawl for people to get interested in like why that venue scene existed. Because originally, there were bards, and before there were bards, it was, just a different environment entirely. It wasn't meant purely as entertainment, right? It was there to meet other writers and create stories with people. Um, but as more and more things outside of Final Fantasy, through Twitch or YouTube or whatever, kind of became integrated into the scene, um, it kind of worked the like sense of, I don't know. I guess you could say like the RP wasn't really self-contained to Final Fantasy anymore, which Discord also didn't help with that.
Mm.
And it still continues to be like a disrupting force, I feel like, in a lot of online spaces, because it's like, oh, okay, you meet people in game, and then it's like, okay, at some point this is inconvenient, let's all join Discord, right? And that's kind of the standard regardless of what game you're playing, what community you're a part of. It's just like a given that at some point you'll join a Discord server and everyone will hear each other's nerdy voices on voice, and it's something that I think is natural at this point in 2023 on the internet, right? It's not to be unexpected. Obviously, there's some people, like I've met people on here that are pretty young, right? Like under 20, under 22, that definitely are averse to voice chat just because they've had bad experiences online, especially girls that I've met too, which I always, as a cis white dude,
Mhm.
I I feel like it's like my responsibility to try to, I don't know, change the stigma around like white straight guys on the internet, because like we're the we're the worst ones as a whole, right? Like not specifically white guys, right? But like straight guys on the internet that are like over the age of like 30, I'd say at this point, right? We grew up on like a different internet. We grew up playing Halo, and
Right.
where, people would drop all sorts of slurs that aren't socially acceptable nowadays every single match, every single time they died, right? It was like, oh, you whatever, right? Every single time you got killed, you go and then after that they teabag your corpse, right? Like that was just how it was. And yeah, nah, and that's how I feel Buster too. It's just like it feels like a social responsibility to, at this point, the larger internet. Like there's so many incels, and I hate using that word, right? Because it's very loaded at this point. And but that's kind of the best word to describe people, right? They are, and it's not. I wouldn't say incel is really even too gender loaded at this point, because it seems to affect everyone equally now,
Right.
both men and women and trans, like everyone. It's more of an attitude, like a defeatist, like hopelessness, about friendships and relationships, and kind of just being very, very pessimistic off the get go and not giving people the opportunity to, either prove themselves or to like make a good first impression, right? Like, granted, I'd say first impressions are probably some of the things that people on the internet are the worst at nowadays. Um, Whether that's because of widespread introversion compared to past. Um, but like using the internet as a way to kind of come out of your shell, and it's kind of been what Final Fantasy was for me, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I whenever I meet people on here that say they have problems socializing or um, meeting people, right? That's like my penultimate hope is that they learn to be hospitable and approachable and know how to approach other people. Um, it was something that I remember when I first started RPing on a male character that I was like, okay, these people are down bad. Like they are rude, they are overly direct, and they just like put it all on the table instantly. And I realized at some point that it was because I was playing a male character, so everyone just assumed I was a guy. And I mean, and they were correct in their assumption, right? But like, it was weird because it affected me mentally in a weird way, and I was just it really turned me off um, from like most people because people just had a certain disregard for any emotional capacity that I had, or maybe any desire to have more than just like, you know, I'm a I'm an escort at a venue, and
Right.
they're looking for the time of their life or something, like that was that was the extent of who I was to them in that moment, right? And
Mhm.
when I came over to Primal and started playing a female character, just the difference in the way people approach me was enough for me to realize that like the way people interact with each other on the internet is fascinating and kind of needs to be talked about just a little more often because it's definitely something that's worthy of discussion, and most people don't really put the thought into it, right? They just do what comes natural to them, and you can blame like dating culture for that, or like the dating apps, right? Like I hope that no one in the chat has spent too much time on dating apps nowadays because it's not a good time.
Yeah.
Especially for people that enjoy video games and like enjoy their time online, because it seems like a lot of people on the apps are they think of it as like an afterthought. This is like a way for me to find a hookup or whatever, and I'm not really going to list anything about myself. I'm going to be coy and post two crappy selfies and maybe
Mhm.
one with some with a couple filters on it and call it a day. So it's tough to contextualize what you experience on a game like Final Fantasy or in a community like Final Fantasies. And then you look at, like you said earlier, if you live in a rural area, like going to the bar, that's the extent of your options when it comes to like trying to find people to meet, like unless you're going to go sit at a park all day and hope people show up or something like
Right.
which uh it's funny because my own mother recommended that. She's like, you should just go hang out at the disc golf park, and I'm like, we were there
Mhm.
we were there 3 times after I got out of the hospital for my heart surgery. We hung around. She stayed around for a couple weeks to make sure I could get to doctor's appointments and stuff because technically I wasn't supposed to drive and whatnot. And I think I started driving 3 weeks after my surgery, which was probably a little too soon, but I didn't want to keep her out here forever either. So in those 3 weeks though, and we kind of bar hopped, which bar hopping with your mom in your 30s, I wouldn't I would not advise it. Um, even if you had open heart surgery, so you have the excuse. I mean, we met a couple people, but none of them were like, you know, date worthy, right? It was like other like couples in like their 40s or 50s, and especially in like Wisconsin, right? Is uh, she was born in Jersey. I was born technically in New York, but it was like right on the border of New Jersey. So I mean, I grew up in that tri-state area in the Northeast, and not that the Midwest hasn't been good to me. The people are nice. Um, I can't really complain about the general. I don't want to say vibe because I hate that word, but like it's the definitely a bit more mellow and
It's like
friendly
a
atmosphere.
cultural shift. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
people are just a little more courteous and um, I wouldn't accepting's a tough word to pin on it, but I'd say mm, people are people are a little more upset accepting of differences out here.
mhm.
Um, maybe it's because there's such a mix of rural farmers, and then like I'm about 40 minutes from the Twin Cities, and that's like a completely different uh, environment, right?
Right.
Urban, very progressive, but seeing that divide within a short distance is kind of similar to how I grew up, my hometown I grew up in.
Mhm.
um, and I feel like that that difference, I mean, you could call it like political because I mean, it is for the most part, right?
It
um,
is. Yeah.
the that difference, you can feel it online too.
Yeah, for sure, and especially in Final Fantasy, I think that it's interesting. We have very different perspectives on this, because you did mention like you're just a cishet dude. Um, I'm a trans woman. I haven't really gone under any like voice training or anything yet, and it's like I'm just here as I am. There's a lot of people like me who are on here in this space, and it allows them a little bit of the room to feel more like themselves. And so you have things like voice chat that is just a lot harder for them because of some level of dysphoria or like breaking that illusion or people feeling like they're not going to be accepted for who they are. Um, but there's parts of the community that are fully accepting of that, and there are parts that aren't. Um, but overall, the culture I find leans towards the more accepting here, which is great for people who live in the areas, especially the United States, that aren't accepting of that. It allows a little bit more of a breathing room and the ability to experience a different culture than the one that you have that's directly around you due to physical location.
No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh, yeah. I yeah, because I remember reading somewhere that Final Fantasy 14 is like the community is generally very, very supportive of like LGBT plus people, and that's really good because
Mm-hmm.
I, well, as you can tell from my icon for Pride Month, I'm bi, woohoo! But yeah, it's just it gives people a place where they can be themselves, be a lot more accepted. I've seen, I mean, it isn't without its problems, of course, because I have seen like people. I remember one party finder, I don't remember, like, somebody brought their boyfriend along, and they were just not having it. They were like, "Okay, that's it, I'm out," and left, and everybody else was just like, What just happened?" Like, "Wow, okay, fine, bye." And then just like, "Get off skiddies, get off my screen." So, it's just it's great it's a great place for people who are needing that online community to feel safe and to be themselves. And a lot of people that I've seen are very accepting of that, and they're just like very grateful that they have that space and they can be safe. And it just it makes me like really happy to see that, especially since unfortunately things are not like people are not very accepting. And again, like you said, like specific areas. So it's just like having that one place to call your own and being surrounded by people who do care and it's like, you're valid. It
Right.
means a lot to people. It really does.
And even with Discord, especially because of like the leaning prevalence towards voice chat in a lot of the spaces, it's harder. This kind of gives people the chance to communicate and form those bonds without feeling the pressure of that. I have people that I've known for a year and a half that I just now have heard their voice because they haven't been able to, you know? And there are plenty of people who I probably just never will hear their voice because of the amount of difficulty that it is for them to speak. And I think that that's perfectly valid. And I'm just grateful that there is a space where people are able to experience and experiment with themselves enough that they're able to eventually find some level of confidence in who they are in order to be able to express that outside of game as well. Um,
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really is just one of the shining lights of this community as a whole is that even though there definitely are those places that are like, ugh, like I'm just here to raid, like I'm not going to accept any LGBTQ people in my party for this, which there have been some that have shown up on like, Final Fantasy Reddit and stuff recently that showcase that, but for the most part, that's just not the actual atmosphere here. Um, and it's refreshing, especially for someone like me, who was a part of the scene while I was still coming to understand myself. But there definitely is still that stigma, right? Of like people and how they present. If you're in a male character, you're going to be treated differently. And I know plenty of like, as I said, males who play female characters because of how they are treated. And I think that there is a lot of validity to that. There's a lot of like, you get judged for the way your character looks very quickly. And there's a lot of things like, oh, like all, all male, all raw, like you got to be afraid of them and stuff like that. And like, it's weird that there are such stereotypes in a space where you have complete creative control over how you look. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely super interesting to me because like you always hear that like male or are all groomers,
Mm-hmm.
like stuff like
Yeah.
that, or like Buster just said in chat, all Hrothgars are gay. Like it's
Right.
like it's this community driven like stigma around certain characters. Like when you see like a female Miko, right, your first instinct is like, okay, there's like about a 75% chance that's a dude. Like and no one will disagree with you either, right? It's just, you know, online creators, the social side of the game, it's perfectly okay for guys to play cat girls. At that point, you got to look at like their name. If they have like Uchiha as their last name, it's probably a dude, you know, or like they're they're a mentor, right? Like that's always the funniest thing to me, right? The mentor crowns. Um, you see like a fairly normal looking cat girl and she's in like starter gear, but she has like a mentor crown. You're just like, okay, that's probably a guy. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think a mentor crown probably at least doubles or triples the incidence rate of a male playing that character. And like
Well, I've heard the weirdest one recently from someone. Someone recently told me that they always look to see whether or not they have odd eyes because they're pretty sure that everyone who has odd eyes in game is trans.
yeah,
And I'm
people
like,
make up wild stuff. It's crazy.
okay, whatever like superstition you want to believe, however you want to stereotype this, it's really funny to me what people come up with to that end, right? Um, but there are the big ones. There definitely are the all Rothgar are gay, the every single row is huggable and a nice person. Like I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just interesting to see because there comes a point where people wean into that a little bit. I've noticed as well,
Of course, yeah.
um, where people are like, "Oh yes, this is actually like those stereotypes are what represents me. Therefore, I'm going to be that." Right. Um, I think that's really funny too. That there are people who are so self-conscious about that sort of thing that they are going to go with the waves of things instead of just being whatever looks like the most authentic self.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of the reasons that even after I started DJing, right? I didn't never changed my name. I never changed my race. I just, just kept playing my female MIDI. And I've never had any embarrassment or shame from it either, right? It was
Right.
who I RP'd as for the longest time. It's how people came to know me. Um, and I still remember, I want to say it was JoJo's birthday party,
Mm-hmm.
um, where we were all wearing the black vest with the pink pants. And I think we were in, I forget if it was his house or someone's house. It was like 10 DJs and we all played for like, was it 24 hours? I can't remember, JoJo.
Oh, jeez.
But we played all night. And I think I played a set from like, when it was, I can't even remember. It was like really early in the day. like I want to say it was like 10 in the morning. I was playing until like either noon or 1 or something. We were playing like 2 hours, 3 hour sets, and I had someone message me that I had ERP'd with probably about a year and a half ago, maybe. And they like just out of the blue thanked me because it was something I said something to them that they really needed to hear, and it helped them like make a big decision in their life, and they just landed a huge job, and they like literally logged on to thank me.
Mm.
Oh,
And I was like, I mean, I mean, you're welcome. Like, I'm happy that I had that impact on you just with writing. Um, it's kind of the thing as like an RPer that you kind of always hope that you can achieve, right? Like, sure, you might be a character in like a bedroom for a night, right? To them, and you might be an hour, 2 hours at the most, right? But knowing that whatever you said stuck with them that much is like very, very self-validating and makes you feel good about what you do and the time that you spend with people on here, even if it is, superficial and, you know facilitated by like a couple million gil exchange, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the spaces like that, they exist for a reason, because like we mentioned before about being able to like walk up to someone, and how you really should be able to use online spaces like this as a way to improve the parts of yourself that need work, right? Because everyone
Right.
has something that they can work on, as a person. And maybe that first introduction part is so difficult for you that knowing that you can walk up to someone and just be like, open the trade window and put in a couple million gil, and they're going to spend 2 hours with you,
Mm-hmm.
is like a getting over a mental hurdle for someone that they wouldn't be able to overcome otherwise, right? Because a lot of the times once you get into a conversation, it flows pretty naturally, right? You're
Yeah.
comfortable, and you're going back and forth, and it feels like you would want a conversation in real life to happen like that. But just that breaking the ice part, or trying to have it feel not too forced, which is a little ironic because you are just paying for their attention and time with Gil. But I know from my own experiences that I never tried to make people feel like that. Like, I know there were people that I've worked around the scene with that would give people time reminders, right? You have 15 minutes remaining. Like, please insert more Gil. Like, which was always tough, um, for me to do, just because if you're having a genuine conversation with someone, a lot of the time my RP was very aftercare focused, right?
Sure.
So I would just, you would write with them for an hour, and they'd be like, okay, I'm fine with this, but can we just like talk for a while? Then you'd spend 3 hours just having a conversation with them about their life or what they're going through in the moment, right? And giving them advice, and you know, generally like wholesome content
It's
compared to what you were doing before.
it's
Um,
so Catcher in the Rye is what it is, honestly. You
yeah,
know.
I mean, it really is. And it's like the type of thing that in hindsight, don't really, you don't anticipate being like what you're known for, or what you're, um, uh, I don't know, like it was something that I kind of picked up after doing it for years,
Mm-hmm.
because I just noticed it was what one, it made me more gil, which is, I wouldn't really say it's embarrassing, but a lot of people around the RP scene actually get into it because of the gil
Right.
making opportunities, right? Whether you're doing at this point in the RP scene, right? If you're doing shouts, like they pay you decent gil to just sit in the town and press a macro every 10 minutes. And new
Yeah.
players will do that in an instant, right? But like back in the day, it was, you had to kind of earn your keep when it came to RP and the effort you put into it. So it was much more of a socially like aware environment where it wasn't. like, oh yeah, no, I'm just a player and I need gil, so I'm gonna do this. It was like, okay, I want to make gil and I want to do it in a way that will have people coming back week after week. And how do you
Right.
do that? It's not by, you know, being super blunt or crude or short-winded in your responses, right? It's about creating some kind of connection that
Mhm.
that person feels on an emotional level, and
It's
even if
almost
it is,
realistic.
yeah, even if it's like, character to character, sometimes the emotions of an RP session are what carries the narrative long term, right? People
Sure.
feel invested in it because they actually felt something, not because they, you know, really enjoyed the way that you wrote your sex, like
Mhm.
I mean that certainly can help, but it's not the thing that keeps people coming around.
You hit that weird spot where like the work aspect of it interacts with the actual social and real aspect of it, and I think it's interesting. I think that represents your own journey in the game, from what I've heard at least, in that like you kind of went from this more RP focused type aspect to being a little bit more real about who you are. Um, and kind of stepping away from some of that side of RP at least in order to come into your own and form these more lasting bonds with people. But it really can be any way in order to like break that barrier in order to talk to people. I have a friend of mine, a lovely person, who got a hold of a large amount of gil in a way that they weren't necessarily the most proud of. And what they decided to do is they wanted to spend all of that gil buying Sprout's Fat Cat minions, and made a bunch of like lasting, really good friendships with people, inviting a lot of people to stay by just running around and giving out like 11 or 12 Fat Cats to people, and some of those people are gonna remember that, and it's gonna make a difference. I had people on my friends list for years and years, and the first people I met in Limbs or randomly on Ultras when I first started, were like, "Hey, you're new. Here's some minions. Here's some gil. We don't want you struggling. Let us know if you need anything."
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. It really does. But whether it's that or even just the people who go out of their way specifically to pay for some companionship, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, so long as the connections that you form actually are real and beneficial and help you grow. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
meeting authentic people through, RP6 or whatever it is you end up doing, like, by all means, so long as the connections that you have are real and worthwhile.
Yeah, I remember some of the first people I met when I first came to Primal. I mentioned the ones that I wrote with, but you know, you when you write that much, you end up seeking out any kind of more casual form of entertainment in your off time, right? And so I would start going out to venues and listening to DJs and trying to just connect with people on a more casual level because I was looking to do anything besides just write. And the the first people that I ended up meeting were some venue workers that worked around like Eternal and Club Poncho, which is
Mhm.
Euphoric Nation's place, right? And just interacting with people in the crowd back then when there was only a couple clubs and the crowds were always like max capacity, right? So there was like
Oh gosh, yeah.
if everyone was still inside, it was capped, and otherwise there were a billion people out in the yard, and like there was just a million names to look through, right? A million people to talk to, and trying to pick out interesting people or whatever it was, right? Like that was fun to me because coming from the writing side of things, it was like I don't want to say like too organized, but it kind of was like very systemic, right? You'd come in and
Sure.
these are the people you would catch up with, or you wrote with this person last week, so you weren't going to write with them this week, and so you knew that you weren't going to interact with them too much. Whereas like the club scene and the venue scene, right, was very very open ended, right? You never knew who you were going to bump into. People roamed around from club to club every night,
Right.
and you weren't going to, you know, I was the type of person that would just show up to a place and whoever was there, right? I wouldn't like open my friends list and like only want to spend time with this person, right? I was very happy to just meet new people and fill up my friends list, which in hindsight was probably a bad idea because I had to end up having to delete so many people.
I mean,
Oh wow.
I ended up doing the same thing, right? I thought I was an introvert before this game. I honestly did. And then whenever I finally was let loose into a world where I'm like, hey, there's a bunch of cool people I can meet and talk to, um, I like branched out really quickly. And the people that I met had this thing where they would joke around and say that I was picking up strays. So I'd always find the person who's like leaning against the wall in the back of the club, and I'd go talk to them and just be like, "Hey, I'm Amory. Like, who are you? Like, tell me about yourself." Like, and people were drawn to that, and sometimes in an unhealthy way. And you kind of have to learn and experience it in that way yourself before you can kind of learn all of those lessons that need to be learned and grow as an individual to grow beyond it. Because sometimes you just end up with a bunch of people who, you know, may not be the best, or people who are there for a few weeks and then disappear. Um, and like life happens. People come, people go. It's just the nature of it. Um, but being able to be in a space where you can go out and just interact with a crap ton of new people every night um, is crazy. It's so odd that it's here. But the longer I'm here, also, the more I feel it's the opposite thing. And I'm like, oh, good lord, everything is connected. This is such a small town. And I don't know if either of you have had the same kind of experience, but I would go out to in-game venues almost every night. I have for well over a year. Um, you run into people who know people you know. you know, everyone knows each other to some extent, and so you go from this like you know, holy cow, like I'll never run into any of these same people again to oh my god, I haven't seen you in 7 months.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that kind of, especially since end of 2022, I was trying to like be more independent, be more myself, and it was a way for me to step out of my comfort zone, like just trying to meet new people, like saying just like hey, how are you? Or, like I mentioned before, like being featured on the streams. I was like a oh wow moment because it's like hi mom, I'm on TV. But it was that sort of comfort that I could just go out and meet people and try to escape my problems just for a little while and just exist.
Mhm.
It was a very freeing feeling, and it was just one of the benefits I had to doing all that club hopping I did. I went to different servers. I went to venues on Goblin, and I actually got to interact with some of the Twitch DJs. They were really friendly too. And one of them I remember like I mentioned like, "Oh yeah, I'm back in the venue scene after being out of it for so long." And one of the things they said to me was like, "Well, we're welcome to have you back." And for me, especially since I have a lot of bad memories on Mateus,
Mhm.
that meant a lot to me. Like it was I think it was like about a couple of months, actually no, years at that point that went from Mateus to Goblin. But seeing that in a server where I didn't feel welcome for the longest time, it came full circle to me. I was having so much fun, but I swear I was about to cry because I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh my god." And that's what sort of started off like me going to like club hopping and everything just to like do all like just find people to talk to and experience new things and like listening and interacting with everybody like because we would have nerd conversations. um one DJ I remember at this one venue played uh I think a metal cover of the SpongeBob SquarePants theme, and everybody laughed about it. I was dying of laughter because I'm just like sitting here doing the bee's knees, and then all of a sudden it's just like, you know, lives in a pineapple under the sea, and like in like metal form, and I'm just dying of laughter, and everyone in the chat was just like having a blast because of all the chaos that happened. But it's just that community for that short amount of time made me realize that I can do things by myself and I can be okay. I mean, I'm still struggling with it because things happen, but it's just refocusing on like being independent while also having a partner. It's one of those things that I am trying to work on, and I think it's gonna help me in the long run. Like, because I do Savage, not Savage, but like the newest Extreme by myself, and I don't have to worry about like, you did this without me, and you feel like instant guilt. But my partner's like, you have fun. You go get that Extreme, get that cat, and I'm like, yep, I can do it.
Yeah, I know from my more heavy writing days that it was something that I felt that pressure to like always do things with the person that you're closest with, right? Or like a partner or someone you're dating in game or whatever it might be, right? Like that pressure, and then finding someone that is okay with the fact that you are both independent people online, and you know still have plenty of time that you can spend with each other doing whatever, right? That you don't need to spend every waking moment like attached at the hip, right? And getting that respect from someone to like, you know, trust your judgment as a person, right? Is really really important, I think. Like finding friends who respect your time and your energy and don't like expect you to dedicate it all to them because you know they feel it's owed. And there's definitely a large contingency of players I feel on Final Fantasy that unfortunately have that ego where they're like they feel entitled to your effort and your every waking moment if you're available, right? Like, and if you're not giving it to them, then they're offended or they're dismissive of you from now on, right? Like next time you approach them, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm busy with other friends," right? And I feel like there's a certain level of like passive aggressiveness within the community that is very very ugly, and uh, it bothers me on a personal level just because I was always the type of person that would try to include people. Like maybe I would write with a bunch of people one on one, and they didn't really connect with a lot of other people, and I would try to bridge that gap, right, and bring a group of people that I think might be capable of being friends with each other to
Mhm.
to all meet, and then they would meet, and then my Discord would be going off as they're like, "Oh my God, do they like me?" And I'm like, "Just ask them. You don't need to like be this like deceptive or talking behind their back, right? Like people will appreciate you much more if you're just straightforward and honest with them. Like
Mhm.
just just ask them, right? And if you're too worried that like you're gonna offend them or whatever, right? Just say like, I don't mean any offense, like, but I'm not annoying you or anything, am I? Like, there's definitely situations where it's perfectly okay to have a conversation like that with someone, and be like, I'm guilty of it a little bit myself. Maybe it's a little bit because I stream, maybe it's a little bit because of my own personality. It's really tough to say, right? But like, I can kind of dominate voice chats or conversations sometimes, and it's not like my intention. I just have a lot of things to say, and I usually the conversations I have with people are long-winded because I'm usually trying to make some kind of greater point, and I like to hit all the bullet points along the way so that when I finally arrive to like a conclusion, it like clicks and makes sense. And sometimes it just takes a while. So I've had people that would be like, "Oh, oh, heaven's coming around, so make sure you don't have too much to say." And I'm just like, I had someone had shared the Discord screenshot, and I'm like, I don't know whether to be more upset with the person who said that about me or the fact that they felt the need to share it behind my back. Like,
I I mean, I'll be honest. It just sounds like you have a personality that's good for a podcast. You
yeah,
know?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, people they don't like too much dead air, especially on a podcast format like this. And I understand where you're coming from, Heaven, because the ADHD is strong with me,
Oh
and
God.
I will talk about what like if anything very much interests me, I will talk about it for hours. Or if I have like I need to be so detailed on this one topic that I go on for hours on that as well. And it's especially funny, like, when you're like, this happened to me in Alliance raids the other day, Royal City of Ravenasti. Somebody asked a question about, "Hey, where's Famfrit from? Is he from, oh god, I don't remember, like, Tactics and 12? Was it just one or the other?" And I said, "You know what? We're gonna have a sit-down conversation about this." My partner was there. I was trying not to go too crazy with it because I'm trying to maneuver everything. And I was just like talking about the Evilise Alliance games, and I love them to death because I like 12 a lot. Revenant Wings is terrible. Don't play it. It's not worth the time. But like I would just go on and on and on about it, and I want to also say it's due to the fact that it could also be like, I don't really talk to many people. I'm still very closed off, and ones I do talk to, like, they appreciate what I have to say, and, like, they're appreciating me, like, being myself, but it's like, in a like, find like, just have, like, another place, like, another outlet, like but not, like, disrespectful or anything, they're just, like, like, find, like, online communities that can also do it, and also, like, and Final Fantasy has become that hub for a lot of people, especially if somebody has a question about the series, and they're like, "Well, where's this boss from?" And I could just sit here and talk about, Eden from Final Fantasy VIII, how it's the last Guardian Force, like, the ultimate one, and the animation for Eternal Breath is very long, and it is encapsulated in game, and I just get so very excited, and just it's just also the perk that comes with this type of thing, in my opinion. It's just like you can talk about like the small little references, and it would just make somebody's day to know something like that. But then again, I've been studying like the Final Fantasy series for ages, so I feel like it's like my duty to talk about them and have fun with it.
Now, of course, and I don't think it's exclusive to any one part of the game too, which is the best part, right? Like, there's the people that are super into like hunt trains, and people that are super into um, collecting. I don't know, I forget the name of those, like the bicolor gemstones, where they're grinding out fates. Like, that's their goal every patch, is to like go to the new zone and cap out on gemstones to get the new mount or whatever, right? Or
Yeah,
people that,
sure, Fates.
yeah, or people that like are just in Eureka at all times, right? And they're always grinding in there because they like doing it, right? Like, there's communities that exist just in that zone alone, right? And like, I don't think any part of the community, any isolated instance of it is like invalid, right? Because they all have their pros and cons. You'll meet different types of people, right? Like, obviously, if you're the type of person who just loves to parse and whatever, right? Like, just going into random party finders all day for no reason, even though you have all the loot you need, all the mounts, right? Some people just enjoy that environment, right? And it's the same thing for, the RP side of things, the venue side of things. They all have their place, and they're all equally important in their own way. People all generate their own sense of value and purpose from being a part of them. Like, I personally rather enjoy being social and connecting with people through the RP space, right? Even if there's not a lot of RP going on nowadays, right? And I can't say I've helped it too much, right, as a DJ. But at the same time, I think the DJ scene has helped bring a different audience into the community, that is a little more casual and not looking for um, you know anything super serious. Because it used the RP scene, like the old guard, you could say, the writers, like, they're still out there, right? We're kind of just all in hiding a little bit, right? And like, it's weird for me personally, just because I used to be one of those people. When like the first DJ started popping up, I was very, I don't want to say pessimistic, but I kind of looked down on them, just because it didn't feel like it matched up with the nature of of the game, right? Like the universe is very self-contained and the community is insular to the point where like they like to stay true to like the lore and the setting and use the right names, right? It's there's not a lot of bridging between the game and real life a ton. And when the bards started getting popular, it was like, oh, they're bards, they're in game, right? It's a class, they're playing music, and then it's like, okay, now the bards are playing through the fire and flames. This is not canonical to the universe of Final Fantasy. But and then like this first DJ started popping up, and things kind of evolved from there, and it became more socially acceptable for everyone to just take it for what it was, which was a casual setting to meet people, right? Especially going through COVID. It was a space that was lacking in real life for a lot of people, and I know just from uh, the days when I used to go to clubs and stuff, like it definitely fills a certain niche that doesn't exist in a lot of other online spaces. I mean, obviously there's like VR chat nowadays, which I feel like there's a lot of overlap between Final Fantasy and VR chat, um, in terms of like purpose and I guess you could say like like a societal internet level, like which is a weird thing to say because I feel like the internet is definitely its own society at this point. Um, but the two scenes are like, I mean, there's DJs that play in both of them. There's it's a similar environment for a lot of people. They're deciding whether they want to use like an avatar in VR chat and make that their thing. Do they want to stream with like a camera, that kind of stuff, right? But
Mhm.
it's an interesting space just because the I guess you could say like the digitally acceptable way of expressing yourself now is way more open than it was in the past. Um, you know, there's DJs in Final Fantasy at this point that are purely like VTubers. There's ones that are purely IRL, right? They're like their in-game camera is like a little tiny thing in the corner, right? Like it's not their focus at all. I mean, I just played last Wednesday. Anyone has listened to Lance Subtle, right? Like he's got his setup is insane, right? He's got his entire stream is like half his decks, a third his camera, and then the very little corner is like his in-game camera. So it's like, and no one gives him shit for it, right? It's just another way of doing it, and I think that's great for variety and to, I don't know, just facilitate a different range of streamers and DJs to watch because you know I remember early in the DJ scene it was like purely electronic music, right? Um, and it wasn't really too specialized. It was kind of just like main room, as Beatport likes to call it nowadays. You know, vocal heavy tracks that are mid tempo and generally liked by everyone. More pop kind of stuff. And as there got more and more DJs popped up, right, people started specializing more in different genres, and the goth scene picked up, and the more hard dance genres popped up, and it's good that there's that variety in music as well because I think limiting any any part of the creative space on here
Mhm.
will ultimately lead to its like decline, and it's a tough thing to acknowledge sometimes, right? Obviously I'm not streaming in the Final Fantasy category right now for a reason. I kind of wanted to talk about like mods and some other stuff because it's a very open part of the community when you're
Right.
involved in the right spaces, right? Like if you go on Twitter, you're not going to see many G poses on there that don't have modded outfits or modded characters or modded something or taken with anamnesis, right?
Mhm.
But it's like, um, I think the creative depth of this community is what will keep it going long term as long as Square Enix doesn't crack down on it too long too right? Like that's always the hope that they'll just keep turning a blind eye to the larger almost economy that exists in this part of the game because it is like a separate digital economy at this point. And I say digital very lightly, right? Because there's obviously a very large monetary side to it as well, when it
Right.
comes to mods and G posing and all that stuff too. As soon as people get to a certain level, they really up their ante as far as what they expect for um, their work, right? Whether it's Patreon or Ko-fi or commissions, all that kind of stuff, right? And I always still respect people that I see doing things for pure gil, because it means they're not invested in the money, but it's a tough call for a lot of people, right? And myself included, just because, after my heart surgery, I haven't had any luck finding an in-person position or a remote position beyond the part-time one that I've had, right? Which is luckily been enough to pay the bills for now, but not much beyond there, right? I'd like to be eating better food and all that, but it's part of the recovery process, and I guess you could just say the job market nowadays.
Yeah. And for a
Yeah.
lot of people, like, this is how they make their money, through the things that are not necessarily kosher in the community from like the dev standpoint. And I think that it's beautiful that that kind of exists still, though. You had mentioned earlier about the diversity of DJs and genres and things, and the bard space has seen like very much so the same type of expansion. Different bards are specializing in different things now. Um, I went and saw someone play, and they were playing like modern pop punk, and like I've been to some places, and they're playing like legitimately like Vivaldi, and I'm like, what's going on? You just never know exactly what type of experience you're getting into until you're there experiencing it. Because it's such a wide variety of everything in the music space. And it's kind of refreshing having that kind of novelty associated with it. Like, no matter where you're going, as long as someone is doing something that is creative, even if it's just like a no music type RP space, it could be they could be doing something relatively unique and novel that is worth experiencing that like differentiates it from somewhere else. Um, and I personally just really enjoy that aspect of uncertainty almost, right? Because it keeps it from getting boring.
I mean,
And
it's
we're
the
all
only.
here to have fun.
Yep.
And then there's people like me who I can't. Okay, so full disclaimer, I can't play Bard in any capacity, not even performance mode. So what I'll do is, what I used to do actually was set up at my free company estate, type in chat, "Hey, free concert in 5 minutes," and people show up, and there's like maybe 1 to 2 because small FC. And so what I just do is I just get my controller, I start smiling, pull out the electric guitar because I love those things to death. Oh my
Hmm.
god, thank you Yoshi for putting them in the game. And I just start button smashing, like, and everybody's just like, "What is this?" And then you have like the crazy people who are like, "Oh yes, this is like my jam. Yes, my religion." And and then I go like, and then I say the name of the song, which I never keep, but they're so long and obnoxious. Like one of them was like, like help! I stuck my hand in a toaster. Now aliens are coming after me." And everybody's just like, "You got this, Ari. We believe in you, girl. Thank God." And yeah, it's just that type of thing is fun for me because I used to be very musically inclined, but I decided that wasn't for me. So I just decided to have a lot of fun with it and just pretend that I'm just smashing pots and pans together just because it's funny to me. Like I won't do it for very long because I value people's like sanity, but I will just rip it out and just go ham on that thing for like about 10 minutes. And actually I was actually the source of entertainment for an eternal bonding ceremony. Just like everyone loved it. They were just like, there's a mosh pit, there was like everything. And I've got people who I went to the thing with, they were just like, "What is wrong with you? Like, we're in public." And I don't care. We're
Yeah.
having some fun today.
Heck
And
yeah.
yeah, and that's just me on the daily, having fun, kind of being reckless. That's why I'm in Gunbreaker, but that's beside the point. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's just crazy.
And
I
that's my
love it.
favorite. That's my favorite type of attitude in this because we mentioned like a long time ago. There's so many aspects of this game that end up feeling like work to people. Like
Yes.
it's this thing that you don't really enjoy that you have to do because you made a commitment to that, like, oh, I'm just here to earn the kill, like I'm a dancer but I don't really want to do anything, so I'm just going to stand here and AFK because I want the money. Like, well, why turn this into that type of work? It just doesn't make sense to me. When you could just be enjoying the game for what it is. And there's that kind of like, it's almost a corruption where things typically go the way of like, gotta earn the guild, or like, I gotta do this because it's what's expected of me at this point. And that just it ruins things. And so many people don't recognize that until they're already in it. I at one point was going to open up my own club. I now just have a small tea shop. Um, but I stopped. I just straight up stopped trying because people were starting to immediately be like, "All right, so how are we gonna earn the gil? Like, okay, like how much are we gonna pay them? Because like we're not gonna get people for this amount." I'm like, "All right, this isn't worth it. You're already making it unfun for everyone."
Oh yeah, definitely. Like once you turn it into like a job, like a like well, not like a job, but like one of those like you like commitments that you're just not entirely having fun with. Then you're
Mhm.
not doing it right, in my opinion. It's like with raiding. It's like if you commit to two statics, I actually had three statics at one point that I was a part of. Eden,
Gosh.
yeah, Eden, DRS, and UCOB. So, I stressed myself out. Do not recommend unless you prefer that type of thing. I won't judge, but like that aspect of it where things you didn't consider or things that you just thought you could handle but you couldn't. And
Mhm.
that's what separates it from being eg- like relaxing, enjoyable to just draining and it sucks. And I don't like that aspect. That's why I like take things a little more
Mhm.
casually these days.
I've tuned into like DJs who have played like four places that night and they're at the very end of it, and I just look at them with their face cam and they're just like this tired-eyed, rambly, somewhat drunk, like not put together type thing, and I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Are you okay? Like,
I Yeah, it's like if you like it's like people especially in Final Fantasy 14 from my experience, they I swear they need to be told it's okay to take a break. It's okay to say I can't make it to the raid because I am exhausted. And 9 times out of 10, people will say real life comes first. Take care of yourself. We don't want you like burning yourself out. And that's what a lot of people need to hear. It's not just like Final Fantasy exclusive, of course. It's
yeah.
just something like that that people really need to be told and to be heard. And like, I don't know, it's just again, something I've been learning for the past couple of weeks where it's like it's
Sure.
okay. It is all right. You don't have to be like over excited about crafting like all the sets. Like you don't have to do it all at once, especially since like I was aiming to do every single set because I feel like I need to still earn my crafting mentor crown, which I proudly wear all the time, just to show that, like, hey, I can do this. And if you need something crafted, I will be more than happy to assist you.
Hmm.
So it's like refreshing to say, like, have someone say, like, hey, you need to stop. You need to take a break, reevaluate, whatever you need to do.
Hmm.
And it's very important to hear that, especially if someone like me who's just wanting to get things done, wanting to make things for other people. I've gotten broke multiple times because I just try to make things for people and just to make them smile.
Yeah, absolutely. But
But
you enjoy that, right? Like when it comes down to it, the
oh yeah.
simpler things you can do, the way of investing in people in that way can bring a lot of joy. Well, there's so many people who they lose track of the fact that this is a game, you know?
Oh yeah,
And
definitely. Like
really do. And it's dangerous. And I've gotten so much in the habit of reminding people, like, hey, can you drink water for me, please? Like, you have a body outside of this. You need to be taking care of it. Which, by the way, both of you, have you had water recently? Um,
Uh,
I've been
I'm
drinking.
drinking. I have
Good.
sparkling water.
Hey, I
It'll
mean, it counts. It'll hydrate you, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's just oh, what was I gonna say? Oh heck. But I mean, that's why I also do things for myself that I do cosplay glamours. Like I generally it's like, hey, if you have a request, just let me know. I actually got somebody to request to me. I don't remember what the series was. I don't remember the character, but I actually did that cosplay within like 10 minutes and he was very impressed.
Hmm.
And it's just like one of those creative outlets I can do for myself and make
Yeah.
other people smile. Like if you asked me like what were my favorite cosplays, I would definitely say like some characters from video games you probably haven't heard of. I actually did Kyrie from Kingdom Hearts, like Kingdom Hearts
Oh.
1. Kingdom Hearts 1, uh Yuri Hyuga from Shadow Hearts, if anyone's ever heard of it, aside from
Hmm.
me.
Did the
But
Kyrie cosplay have the obnoxiously large shoes?
I tried my best to recreate it, but I don't think it was that obnoxious. I actually did BB from Fate Extra CCC, which
Okay.
I was very excited about. So it's just like one of those things where I could just, have that calming, relaxing activity that I'm not like
Mhm.
going out and intentionally queuing into P12 normal just to get a nice little funny number for Gunbreaker or Monk. It's just like me being myself and doing a medium that I would love to do IRL, but I just don't have the costumes, the funds, what have you to do it. So
Right.
it's just that little comforting thing that I can do. And I think there is actually a niche portion of the glamour community that does it, and I greatly appreciate it, but I just don't
Mhm.
put it out there.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely. There's venues that I see host costume contests a lot of the time, and I'll always be surprised because within the venue scene, you end up recognizing a lot of names, and you'll go to the club and you'll see that there's okay, these are like 40 people. I never recognize all these names, and then like there's a couple new people, and you see they're already in their costume glam, and they're there to win, right? So there's
Oh
definitely
yeah.
like that niche side of the community that likes to do stuff like that, and it's appreciated a lot of the time, especially as someone that's more involved in like the organizational side of a lot of it. Venues are always looking for how to make the night more interesting, right? It's one thing to just have your normal staff and like a DJ, right? Having that little extra thing to bring people around or keep them engaged or get them to talk in Twitch chat, right? Like that's something I'm always trying to accomplish a little bit more as a DJ. It's nice to have that big chat energy, as Astromancy likes to say. Um, it's kind of validating that people are engaged beyond purely the music. Um, it's a little tough for me because I play more of an easy listening genre in like trance and progressive. But it does feel great when people are engaged with both your content as a person and your content as a DJ, and
Right.
it's a tough balance to strike. A lot of the bigger DJs around the scene, right, have gotten to the point where they can do content streams or some other form of stream content, right, and they
Mhm.
have a following that's large enough that their chat will still be active and they can facilitate an entertaining experience if they're playing a different game or if they're just going through MSQ or whatever, right? And Final Fantasy does have a unique problem with that, in that most people would want to see people go through the MSQ and watch every cutscene and do all that stuff, right? Like it's kind of almost become like a meme at this point that if you like skip cutscenes, people will stop watching your stream or whatever, right? Like, um, but I think it's healthy that the DJ community is kind of branching out and trying different things. Like I said at the very start of the show here today, that DJing was kind of me trying to fill in my own personal gap in the scene that I felt was there, um,
Mhm.
which has since been filled by the 500 DJs,
Yeah, yeah,
and I don't feel like it's necessary for me to try to play 10 gigs a week anymore, right? And
right.
I wanted to do this podcast for the better part of a year, just as a way to just talk about like how this space feels to someone that's as someone that's been in it and around it for as long as I have, and to try to gain some different perspectives, right? Because not everyone is like a pure like venue hopper. Not everyone is into writing. Not everyone is into rating. Everyone's into different things, but usually a lot of people will engage with the social side of the scene in some capacity, and it's intriguing to me because they all end up accomplishing kind of the same thing in the end. There's different ways of being introduced into it. Um, Whether it's, you know, after your savage group is done and you're all exhausted mentally because you just wiped to something for hours on end, right? And you really just need to like turn your brain off. So you just go to a venue and everyone just shoots the shit in voice while they listen to like a DJ or something. Like,
Mhm.
or, you work at a venue and you're in voice with like all the staff, and it's like a group effort and you have a good time and you do it 2 or 3 nights a week. I mean, granted, I know some people that work at venues 5, 6, 7 days a week because they just love it so much. They like being part of a collective, effort to, whether it's make Gil or just make people have a better time than they would have had without that venue, right? And I think that's like an admirable thing for people to hope to accomplish on here. Um, Not only on like a group level, but a personal level. And I know for myself, um, after writing like I did for years and being involved with people on like a more personal level, it definitely felt super nice to connect with people without that connotation being involved. Um,
Mhm.
and even though it took a while for me to kind of, I don't know, break that wall down, right? Because that was something that I had a lot of trouble doing about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. Just like letting my guard down, so to speak, right? It's something that we all go through online, and it's not something to really be taken lightly either, right? Especially on the modern day internet, right? Like everyone knows that there's creeps and predators and bad actors who are out there, right? People who, maybe they don't have negative intentions, but they're clearly not there to like improve your life or be a good friend, right? They're just there. And being able to pick people out, get a good read on people's ambitions or their personality, and being able to figure out if you like will get along with them long term is something that people are getting better at over time. But then there's a subset of people that are just determined to be confusing and like belligerent almost, to the point where like they just make it more difficult on the people who are actually looking to connect with one another.
Right. Which
And
actually, sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go.
Yeah, I was actually about to make like a little quick mention. I The thing is, whenever you said join in voice with the other staff members, I actually remembered that I once upon a time back in the good old year of 2020, I was actually a receptionist for a venue. I didn't do much aside from like say hello, but I
The
remember I
macro.
got super yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
I remember I got super nervous because I was trying to ask a question, but the music was so loud, people were talking and trying to like talk in the Crossword Link show was not working until somebody brought it up, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't do this." But the funny thing is that the owner, um, I had like this dancer glamour on, and I like nothing like scantily clad or anything, just like something relatively normal or normal, quote unquote. And I was just like over there, just like doing my thing, dancing around. And the the both of them were like, "Yeah, we need to hire you as a dancer ASAP. Come on, we got to get you a contract." I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm good at being a receptionist, though. I'm good." But it's I can't believe that I completely forgot about it. That's so wow. It's been years. I mean, the club's defunct now, but just things that wow. I didn't even think I remember that.
Yeah, no, I from my time around a wide variety of venues at this point, I definitely can think about the people that really left like an impact on me, whether they were writers or just genuinely good people, owners, managers. Um, like I had a pretty I wouldn't say harrowing experience on Crystal. Part of it was my own making. When you're just involved in that side of the scene, things can get a little strange. People are very, very into making a lot of gil. And when you're a writer back in the day, when writing was a little more valuable, or at least considered valuable by people around the scene, right? Um, your your ability to make money through writing was highly sought after, right? And in the early DJ scene, being able to pay the DJs was important too, because the DJs wanted a very large amount of gil early on because there weren't a lot of them, right? And they realized real quickly that they were a hot commodity when it came to filling up a venue or getting new faces in to check it out.
Right. That advertisement factor too, where you have like a big name, like saying like DJ so and so, and it's like I can see where people are coming from on that because it's like I'm bringing people in because I'm a big name or whatever. It's just like that sort of mentality. I think like not just exposure, but like getting paid in like in-game currency. It's like hey, this is something to do with my time, and it's pretty great. Why wouldn't I get a cut?
Yeah, yeah, no, it was definitely something that didn't bug me as much because gil. I remember back in the day, I had plenty of gil from writing, and I would spend it pretty willy nilly on whatever I wanted. And I left a lot of money over on Crystal just because when I left, I just made a new character on Primal. I didn't want anyone to be able to track me or follow me. Um, Lodestone ID tracking is unfortunately a thing. People that write it down, right, can always figure out what your character name is wherever you go. So, I kind of just abandoned that persona and that um, I don't know, that being that I was over there. And I don't really feel bad about it. It wasn't something that I felt like I needed to keep a part of me long term. It was kind of just a phase, right? It's something you learn from and you bring those lessons forward with you. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that I really wanted to start this podcast, right? It was because the experiences that we have on here, regardless of who they were, or regardless of who they are with, when they happen, right? They always shape us in unexpected ways, right? We might learn a lesson, a rather painful one at that sometimes, right? That maybe you shouldn't open up too fast or trust someone with a certain amount of information, or the whole host of more online specific things, right? You don't want to dox yourself, which I mean I've made the mistake of doing that in the past. Shout outs to Black Desert and the crazy people that RP'd in that scene. But regardless, it's part of the greater experience, right? The people you meet, and things you learn about yourself and what you're comfortable sharing with people, and using that as a basis for how you interact with people, um, is very, very integral, I think, to like building friendships and relationships, especially long-term ones, because it's easy to, I don't know, very quickly grow attached to people, especially in the online spaces like Final Fantasy or VR chat, or whatever they might be. People are introverted, but it's like you said earlier, Amory, about like finding out that you're actually much more extroverted than you realized. You just didn't have the space to do it in. So when you find people that have common interests, and you don't feel excluded from the get-go, you're able to open up to people more quickly. And after you do that for a period of time, that becomes natural feeling, right? And that
Sure.
once you grow comfortable with that, it feels weird to not be open with people like that. And that's something that I've tried to rein in a little bit myself, um, just because it's. I mean, I've had interactions with people that are like, "This is progressing too quickly. Can I just talk to you on another day?" And I'd just be like, "Oh,
Right.
yeah, apologies. I didn't mean to be too open or anything, but
Right.
it happens sometimes."
It does. Sure. I know you have to teach it here in like 4 minutes, but thank you so
Yeah,
much for having us on and all of this. It's been wonderful.
you know,
So
this is, like I said, this has been something that I've been trying to do for a while. So I didn't know who was gonna show up or want to talk today. So I'm glad you
yeah,
showed up, and thanks to you too, Ari, for talking.
Yeah, I was thinking about like coming on, like, cause I definitely didn't plan this, cause I was about to go get something to eat after I did EX6 Prague Party, but I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna come on here. I'm gonna put myself out there again. And by the way, the Aura that just showed up, yeah, hi, that's me.
hi.
Crazy, crazy as heck tank main. Gotta. Except I can't play warrior. I can play gunbreaker, but I can't play warrior. But I'm very glad for the opportunity. Thanks for having me, and thanks for dealing with my interesting rambling, as I like calling it.
That's what we've
No,
all been doing, I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wonderful to meet you, Ari, and the
Yes.
opportunity to be on and chat, man. It's been great.
Yeah, same with both of you. Like it was pretty great to like expand just a little bit and to get out of my comfort zone. Like I'm off Leviathan. Like wow. Big step today.
Congratulations.
Thank
You got
you.
it. Okay. Well, definitely don't want to take up any more of Venice time, some real time crunch here, but thank you again, and I'm sure that like I'll be listening in and be around for the next time. So
Yes,
thank you both so
yeah.
much.
Hopefully,
Stay
of
safe,
hopefully
guys.
course.
this will
Have a
be
wonderful day.
some. I was originally planning on doing this Tuesdays, but if Wednesday evenings seem to be a better time, I might just keep doing them Wednesdays. It's hard
Sure.
to really say for sure, but um, it's definitely going to be something I do on a weekly basis, and hopefully some new faces, new voices every week. Just facilitate more conversation because people have a variety of experiences on here, and I don't think any of them are
Yes.
invalid. And I just want to hear what people have to say about the internet and their way of making friends and just how I don't know. I think we all do a little better by each other and the spaces that we're a part of to make it a little bit easier on each other.
Sure.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck at
Thank
your
you.
thing as
Happy
well.
birthday.
Happy
Uh,
birthday.
Until
yeah,
next time.
just
Bye.
so many birthdays today. Seems like that's what
Yeah.
everything in Party Finder is about, birthdays.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go probably destroy something and party finder myself. I don't know what. I hope it's E12S because I still need some of the tops. But thank you so very much. Hope you have a great set tonight.
All right. You too. Thanks for coming around. I appreciate it. You have a
Of
good rest
course.
of the night.
You too.